Welcome back, South Jersey and New Jersey football fans, to the South Jersey Football Frenzy show here from Studio B on a beautiful, it was a beautiful day, wasn't it, Mac?
It's a little rainy, but it's not. It's temperate. It's nice. It's 55 degrees.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a preview of what we might have at SHI Stadium this week. And I don't know if anybody's heard, but up at Rutgers, there are going to be 5 public state championships in football. First time in New Jersey history. Everybody is going to make history this weekend, no matter who is there playing on the turf. Mac, it is finally here. How excited are you?
Uncharted waters. I mean, I 2 weekends ago, I mean, we're going to talk about those games. We're going to touch on preview and stuff. I know that, but you know, what a culmination of the South Jersey season.
Yeah.
You know, at Cherokee, and what a job they did there. Well, I mean, all these things we're going to talk about, but you know, now, you know, you can look back, and this is the first of the first, right? I mean, these are kids at the first time being there, and then having opportunity to say, finally, I'm a true public school state champion in the state of New Jersey. So it's a pretty cool time for these 10 schools.
It's been well overdue, but we're finally here. It's taken years of clamoring and complaining, frankly, but just shows you complain enough, it does pay off. The squeaky wheel does get the oil sometimes. Mac, we'll break down each of these games. We're going to talk about Sunday's games first, and then we'll break down the games that feature South Jersey's teams, which we know a little bit better. First off, congratulations to the state champs in the non-pubs. DePaul won non-public B. And Bergen Catholic, after getting it taken to them during the regular season by Don Bosco, turned around and repaid the favor and then some, winning the non-pub A championship.
How do those they're confusing, right? I mean, how does that the regular season outcome, and then even my wife, she's like, "Did you see the Bosco Bergen score?" I'm like,
"Yeah."
She's like, "Is that right?" I said, "Yeah, it's you know, funny game."
It is a funny game, Mac, and they played those games at MetLife, I think, last Friday.
Yes.
Hey, look, Bergen Catholic going to be the #1 team in the state. I feel pretty certain about that in every ranking, and deservedly so. So congratulations. I think aren't the brothers the coaches of both the teams that won, or there's some type of bloodline there. But non-pubs have been playing for state finals for a while, not to disparage that, but it's time for pubs. First and foremost, we took off for Turkey Day week.
Yeah, we were allowed, right?
We were allowed. We were granted permission by Rod. Thank you, Rod, for letting us have a holiday.
You guys did run your podcast Sunday night, though, after semifinal weekend.
We did.
You seemed a little punchy.
Yeah, I was a little punchy, and what was left of me with the wind cutting through us there. You were there with us on Sunday. How cold was it, would you say, at the bowl?
It was really cold. Saturday was a little cold. Sunday was really cold. Thankfully, the sun was out.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, some high school kids that I'm close to learn some nice lessons about trying to look stylish versus trying to stay warm.
So, the adage is about playoff weather, I think.
A hoodie and sneakers wasn't cutting it for your normal average 15, 16-year-old, but that's how they live and learn, right, Rod?
Yeah. Looked a little windy out.
Yeah, it was a little windy.
But it was windy the day before, but the day before was a high of 40-something, where it was 30-something on Sunday, and the feel like was 20-something. And at the tail end of that Millville game, when that sun dipped.
Yeah, and the wind on Saturday was, when it picked up, it was pretty gusty, but it did stop at times.
Yeah.
And
yep.
Sunday, it never stopped.
No.
It was nonstop. And I will say at Rutgers on Saturday, the high is going to be 60, the low is going to be 30, but it's going to be wet. So weather could go, it depends when you play, it depends what time, it depends what the wind's doing, but certainly something to think about here with these final games.
Bring some towels, bring some footballs, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's not anything we haven't seen yet. But Mac, Turkey Day, normally for you is Lenape Shawnee Day. That was not the case this year. You've been on both sides as a coach and having your son play in the rivalry. What did you do for Turkey Day other than fix your famous gravy? And how was it this year?
I think it topped all. I mean, my wife might have to chime in, but I think it was the topper. The
Number one all time.
number one all time. We had plenty of extra, and we cooked with the convection oven this time. I did the convection setting on the
Nice.
oven, so you got to adjust the time. I think the overall, all I handle is the turkey and gravy, and my wife does literally everything.
Yes, she does.
So it was great. It was weird not having that high school football.
Did you go to a game?
No, I did not, because my mother was in town. Her mother, we had family. I was going to head over to the Camden East Side game.
Yeah.
Tommy and I were going to go over to that, but with the families coming in, my brothers. So it was, but it was interesting. We, you got the football in the background. You're watching the Egg Bowl at night, the Ole Miss game, and a lot of college football. And we're all, quite frankly, we're a little bit soccered up right now. I'll be honest. I mean, we're watching. We watched the game on Friday, the 0-0 tie against England.
Yeah.
So we got listen, Aronson, he's the Medford Messi.
That's right.
He's a neighbor, so it's a pretty cool time around the Medford parts or South Jersey or the country.
There were some really competitive pro games on Thursday. It was fun to watch too.
Yeah, they were.
I was at the East Side game with Camden, as was Rod, and D2 Sports Network had the video. I know a number of people have asked me, what happened in that game? Well, the good news is you can watch the replay on D2 Sports Network, and that's why I tell them, Rod, go back and watch if you want to know who played and who didn't and how they played.
Yes, sir.
That's a tough turnaround.
It is, and it seemed that way, but East Side, the first possession snaps a punt snap over the head out of the end zone, 2-0. Oh boy. You think
Right.
the Purple Avalanche is ready, right?
Ready to
I
rock
always-
and
And that was the last points they
Wow.
scored.
Look, I in those situations, I used to say before we had these states in the semifinals, the years we lost in the sectional first round,
Right.
where you had 14 days to lick your wounds, was totally different when you lost in the sectional semis.
Sure.
You lose in the sectional semis, you're losing 6 days, 5 days prior. Your kids are still, they lost the opportunity to go to at the time, the sectional final, where Camden High just lost South Jersey semis.
State semis.
State semis. That's what I mean. South Jersey finals to get to the state final. So
I don't think there's any doubt most of South Jersey could empathize or sympathize with Camden High's situation going into that game and what the final score indicated. However, the one portion that has none of that sympathy or empathy is on the east side of Camden, where they got a trophy and they got a big win, and they enjoyed every second of it, and they'll enjoy it for another 360 and change as they showed up and got their turkey where they needed it.
It's different. I understand that that's a quick turnaround, but you're ready to fight your brother.
Yeah.
Look.
If that can't get you out of what funk you're in, I don't know.
I think the
one.
trash talk is a little heftier when it comes to Federal Street and Farnham Park compared to many other locales. And I know that because I heard it at that game.
Listen, there's a coach. Kids are kids, and football players are football players, and 16, 17, 18-year-old Camden High kids, any kids, they had to be leaving that place on Saturday after the Delsey game. I mean, that's
a heartbreaker.
It's a heartrbreaker. The way it happened, again, we're going to touch on it. I know the staff there. You're trying to we've all been in that spot. You got one more game, and we used to play at Eustis. We used to play Pennsauken, right? We get to go play the Big Red and the tradition. I used to bump, and we just lost a game, and it's just like you're just trying to pump them. Right. Football, the way it's such an emotional.
It is.
But listen, I'm.
You know what I'm about to say.
I know. You're like, Mac, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, right.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Work harder.
That's it.
Right.
There were a couple really interesting games. And Holy Spirit scored 1,000, and Atlantic City scored 800 in their game, and Holy Spirit wins, and Ice Cup ends up on SportsCenter top plays, one-handed grab.
Oh, yeah.
There's some other new rivalries were created and played. There are less and less games, but in a way it also brings more attention to those games that still stand because there are people that want to get out and see them. I thought one thing going out on Thursday morning, thank goodness the weather warmed up from Sunday, because had it been, I think I probably would have taken my turkey in my room. But regardless, Turkey Day's over, and it's almost time for, it might be taking us in. It's almost time for different holidays. We're getting towards the end here. We're getting towards all South Jersey stuff and end of year ceremonies. We had the Scholar Athlete Banquet last night at Touchdown Club. Thanks to all who participated. It was a great night. We have an all South Jersey banquet here in a couple weeks. I know that this is the time of the year, right? The coaches get together and honor their kids, and everybody now, it seems like, has their ducks in a row for this end of year stuff, except 3 of the teams in South Jersey. And those teams would be Woodbury plays at noon on Saturday against Mountain Lakes in the first ever public state championship game. Delsey plays Old Tappan at 3 p.m. on Saturday. And Millville plays Northern Highlands at 6 p.m. on Saturday. Mac, we will talk about each of these games individually, but first, let's take a look at Sunday, where South and Central Jersey will be represented by the Shore Conference. First, it'll be Group 2, Rumson Fairhaven versus Caldwell at noon. Now, Mac, we saw Rumson Fairhaven up close at Cherokee. I thought they were excellent. I thought it was great the way they were balanced. The quarterback was poised, put the ball on the money, an experienced team. They look a little bit like Holy Cross when you see them out there in those purple unis, right? And the white and the purple. But they got quite a task with Caldwell, who I think many would probably favor in this game. They're undefeated. They haven't lost since 2020. Their quarterback is a senior, Luke Curzum, 1,600 yards, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Junior running back Joey Marinello, 156 carries, 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns. Balanced team linebacker Julian Casale, a junior, has 103 tackles and 9 sacks. And Marinello doesn't just run it, 98 tackles on defense. This is a team that I think the Chiefs are, like I said, many will think they are the favorite in this game. But as we saw with Rumson Fairhaven when they beat Willingboro 42-6 in the state semifinals, we talk about weather, cold, wind, whatever. And I haven't seen Caldwell play, but I can tell you, Rumson is going to be ready for any situation, too.
Yeah, Rumson, look, the wind was whipping in their face. I think the opening kickoff, Willingboro defers and kicks off, and Rumson comes out slinging it.
Yeah.
Like, the hitches, the spread offense they run, and then they come in and they run it downhill. I mean, for a Group 2 team, they got some dudes up front, too. I mean, Rumson's got some size. You could say Rumson is, a little battle tested, right? They had that, they had the comeback in the sectional final. It'll be all these games we're going to talk about. I mean, I don't think you'll see prohibitive favorites on either side. We have our favorites, of course, but Rumson is the de facto South representative. So even though they not coming from the West Jersey Football League, we kind of be nice to go 5 for 5, yes?
Yeah, make no mistake about it. We are definitely all West Jersey Football League when it comes down to it. But we're willing to maybe find some gray area for the Shore Conference here as they're representing our half of the state in this championship. But
sure.
We'll see. Caldwell seems to be the favorite. Derek, Chris, and Hector are saying it in the chat. Those guys know everything about top to bottom the whole state. But I will say this. If Rumson wins, I wouldn't say I would be stunned. Just judging on the way you could tell in that game that we saw how well coached. Talk about a program that is there every year.
They've been right. They got the perennial. Again, Caldwell. Maybe on paper they're probably 10-point favorite.
I don't know. Kevin Emmons just asked what the line is. Chris Baker says 6.5. Bear Bradshaw is the guy who gives the lines. Isn't that right? Bear is in here.
So we're saying
we're saying
a score? We're saying a score. One-score game? I mean, 6.5.
Sure.
Well, Caldwell's...
Until Bearway's in, I don't know. I trust him.
I think it's probably...
Did a pretty good job
I
this
think
playoffs,
I think it's more of a 10.
Rod?
It's probably a 10-point on
job.
paper.
Okay. The Chiefs. It's hard to go against a team that hasn't lost in 2 years. Speaking of a team that hasn't lost in a while, how about Toms River North? And not only have they not lost in a while, I don't think they've been tackled in a while.
No. That dude...
Micah Ford.
He's different. He's different. You know, I've gotten grief about quarterback run. It's amazing. You hear, the NFL now talking about the extra gap, I mean, we're like, hey, high school guys know this already, right? Like, you got to defend this thing. It's not easy. Now, nobody wants to put a $30 million asset into the middle of the pile all the time. But, Micah Ford is that quarterback that threes become 30s, that become 60s. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's really the difference. We saw him against Kingsway. We saw him on Sunday. At Cherokee, he's just a different guy, and and they're going to do Toms River North. They're going to do and they got other guys too. They're just not going to quarterback run it and
right. Yeah, they've got some dudes, and the dudes they have on the line remind me a lot of when you looked at what Jalen Hurts was able to do on Sunday night. When Jalen Hurts, when he, as he calls it, gets freaky in the open field, he can do a lot of great things. When he's behind Kelsey and Johnson and Mailata, who are running 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 yards down the field, he can really do some great things because he's not getting contacted until he gets further. And that was the case when I saw Toms River North against Edison. I mean, Ford gets out there and runs. He's got some big guys ahead of him, and they are mowing people down.
You got to want to tackle that guy.
Toms River North is a unanimous favorite in this comment section. And Bear says he gives Rumsen the 3-point nod. He thinks Rumsen by 3, and he's got Toms River North by 20. Now listen.
He's saying run away. He's telling us they're the number 2 team in the state.
I think,
if not one.
I think if they win this in that manner, Toms River North probably could be considered the second best team in the state, and if not, right there, I would think. PCTI does have an excellent defense, and let me give you some stats about the Bulldogs here. Their losses this year were to Ridgewood and Patterson Eastside. Running back Trishawn Dye, 230 carries, 1,159 yards, and 10 touchdowns. He also has 129 tackles on defense. We're seeing this theme of guys who have a ton of tackles, a ton of rush yards, playoff football, championship football, right?
That didn't surprise me in the Rumson-Caldwell matchup, but when you have a Group 5 guy doing both,
it's serious.
That's the guys are guys. I mean, it's all hands on deck right now. You're going to see quarterbacks playing safety who might not have played safety or D-back. We kind of had a guy who jumped in and played a couple plays to seal some stuff back in the day. I mean, this is it. This state is for literally all the marbles. So, but that type of stuff takes a toll on players too, though. It's one thing tackling your regular season foes. It's another thing tackling Micah Ford.
Right, and we have mentioned in the past Toms River North's schedule and what that looks like when you look at it like a world tour, right? This is where they were. This is what the score was, and some of them are like 70-0, 56 whatever. A lot of blowouts. But on PCTI's side of things, Mac, they haven't given up more than 14 points all season. In their losses, they gave up 12 and they gave up 7 in those 2 games.
Have they played Toms River North yet?
No, they haven't. Right. But just to their point, this is an unstoppable force versus a pretty immovable object situation. But that unstoppable force really, really looks unstoppable. I would say Micah Ford, 100+ yards. Caleb is a pretty safe prop bet. I think the minus on that one might be pretty good.
In the first half? Is that a half line?
Michael Ford, we talking 200.
Right.
Well, maybe they take him out and say, if Bear's right and they're gonna win by 20, maybe he's watching the second half.
Hold on. If they can win, listen, if Tom's River North can win by 40, they're going to win by 40. There's no point. They're not.
This is the final game of the year. If you think Michael Ford is not touching the ball every single play.
Oh, my God.
And it is the final game of the year. This is the nightcap, 3 p.m. on Sunday. This is it.
You see if he's got his commercial driving CDL license. That cat will drive the bus, win the game, and he'll be up on the thing. He'll do the band stuff, too, at the end, like the college guys.
Yeah.
Last game of the year, you are putting the game on your best players' back. There is nothing to think about next week or being safe with, like.
Right. The over-under, people say, over-under on touches for him might be like 35, but I'm not going to say 35 because he'll go 60.
Right.
Yeah. Well.
And then Pasake's going to watch this and get all, well, I'm not worried about it.
Well, hey, man. I mean, if the Bulldogs are at home watching us, thanks. You can always use the viewership. Share it out on Facebook, Bulldogs.
Tackle Michael Ford, too.
But, hey, we want to see all great games, so let's see it. It'll be an interesting matchup, but I would say they are the favorite to win this one. Toms River North, the Mariners.
Prohibitive.
Said that before. Say it again. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and preview the South Jersey teams that are in the finals and who they have. They're all on Saturday at noon, at 3, and at 6. I hope I see you there at SHI Stadium at Rutgers, but we'll be back right after this to preview those games. So sit tight and share it out.
The South Jersey Football Frenzy Show is sponsored by Mall Chevrolet on Haddonfield Road. Mall Chevy is South Jersey's largest Chevy dealer and has been a big part in helping our community grow. They're proud to sponsor South Jersey High School football. Mall Chevy is our area's go-to dealership with the largest selection of brand new Chevys and a huge inventory of pre-owned vehicles, plus an award-winning 5-star service department. They're located on Haddonfield Road across from the Cherry Hill Mall, or visit them at mallchevy.com. A special thank you to Dave O'Sullivan of South Jersey Glory Days, sjglorydays.com. South Jersey Glory Days brings us a platform that we've been on here for the last couple of years. The South Jersey Football Frenzy Show would not be possible without him. Visit Sully's website, sjglorydays.com. The South Jersey Football Frenzy Show is also sponsored by Atlantic Chrysler Jeep Fiat. Located on Tilton Road in Egg Harbor Township, it's been a big part in helping the community grow. Proud to sponsor South Jersey High School football. Atlantic Chrysler Jeep Fiat. Tremendous selection of brand new cars and pre-owned vehicles. An award-winning service department. A presenting sponsor of the South Jersey Football Frenzy Show. The show is also sponsored by Jersey Gridiron Scout. Coach Tom Pagic is Jersey Gridiron Scout, the premier recruiting service platform for all middle school and high school prospects in the tri-state area when it comes to football. Jersey Gridiron Scout does 3 things for football prospects. 1, they have a senior showcase in December and an underclassmen showcase in May for high school prospects to be evaluated in front of more than 50 colleges. 2, they have off-season winter indoor position trainings for youth, high school, and college prospects from January to June at the Fieldhouse in Moorestown. And 3, they educate families on the college football recruiting process and timeline. Check out Tom's website at jerseygridironscout.com for more information. Follow him on Instagram at jerseygridironscout and on Twitter at Coach Pagic. That's at Coach Pajic. South Jersey Football Frenzy Show is also sponsored by Cherry Hill Jeep on Route 70, home of the real zero-down deal. For over 50 years, Cherry Hill Jeep's been a big part in helping the community grow, and they remain proud to sponsor South Jersey High School football.
New Jersey football fans, to the South Jersey Football Frenzy Show here from Studio B. Mark Trible here, joined by Coach Tim McAneney and Rod Self, as always, on South Jersey Glory Days. Thank you, Sully, for giving us the platform. State Championship Saturday, the first state championship of public schools in the state of New Jersey history, features Group 1, Mountain Lakes, the Thundering Herd, or some call them the Lakers, I've seen both, against Woodbury, the Thundering Herd, or the Thundering Herd. Woodbury this year was all about the Get Back tour after losing to Salem in what, wasn't the state semifinal, but was that stage last year, right?
Correct.
They were at Rutgers, and they took it on the chin to the Rams. And then this year they met Salem in the state semifinals, same stage, different name, at Cherokee, and took care of them right from the jump. Won that game 22-7.
It was never
in doubt.
No.
I didn't think.
Opening
they got
drive.
the ball first, went down, scored. Brian Johnson, and offensive coordinator, as we were talking about before the show, Jamal White did a great job of having that thing balanced, getting it out, having Brian do his thing, running the ball too with Reagan Jr. wore the hat. Woodbury, with all of these pieces that they have, and you go down the list, their roster at this point, you know them like the back of your hand. Offensively, you got Reagan Jr., you got Johnson, Brian's brother, Jaden. You got Jabron Solomon, one of the most electrifying players in South Jersey. You got Dom Abatelli. You got Deron Moore on the other side of the ball, linebacker, who also comes in and runs it sometimes. You got Jaswan Solomon. You got on defense. You got all of these guys. They're just more and more and more. Now, Mountain Lakes is a team that gets here. They came back and beat Weequahic in their state semifinal. I think it was 29-23 or something to that effect. They came back and won. This Woodbury team is awfully talented. They're awfully athletic. They're awfully tough up front. And they have a quarterback who, look, the southpaw man, he can sling it, and he makes the right decisions. And they've been clicking.
I saw him live for the first time on Saturday, and he was impressive. Opening from the jump, up and down, controlling the ball, making good decisions with the football, right? Like taking those 6-7 yards, getting out of bounds, the old things we talk about, right? Just moving the chain sometimes when it's not there, don't force it. Like I said, I think that opening drive was a 10, 11, 12, what did we say, 12-play drive, something like that? It was like 5 and 7, hit, close to 50-50 on the ground in the air. And all the guys you mentioned, the Solomons, and the Johnsons, it's not only the talent they have, it's that chip a little bit, right? Like it's that going back, and you can't duplicate revenge. Like you could say, Salem could say all they want about they can get hyped up and there can be all this crosstalk going on, but at the end of the day, Woodbury lost to Salem last year.
Yeah.
And Woodbury lost to Salem regular season.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so that stuff.
Well, look at it this way. And Rod and I touched on this before we went on our sabbatical the night after the championship. The group, the Sunday championship, state semifinals, I apologize. But teams that are left standing are teams that were either there last year or pretty darn close to being there last year. And this Woodbury team is very experienced, upperclassmen throughout the roster. The difference in this team and last year is when they had that situation last year where they lost to Salem, and even the end of this season losing that game to Salem in the last 5 minutes, what were the team leaders and what was the team as a whole going to do about it?
Right.
And what they've done is they've focused in from a leadership perspective on the field, and to take nothing away from the excellent job Coach Reagan, Coach White, Coach Shorts, everybody else has done there. They've done a phenomenal job, but you could tell by the way they carry it on the field that it's my responsibility to you and to you and to you and to all those people in the stands. And let me tell you, at Cherokee, there was everybody in the town of Woodbury was there.
Right. Now, look, the kids that comes also culturally from how they practice, how the coaches, what expectations, what your what's required to play Woodbury football at this point. And these guys, if they know what it's, sometimes you got to know what it's like, unfortunately, to lose, to go out and, get that win. I mean, a coach that you and I are both friendly with, and I remember being early in my career, I said to him, I said to my dad, I would say, man, you guys never told us how bad the losses sting as compared to how much the winning feels good.
Yes.
And these kids have had the sting of the loss. Yeah. And sometimes that sting of the loss is, you never wish a loss upon your team, but sometimes that sting of the loss kind of smacks you in the face in a good way and gets you directed.
To a man, after that game, as excited as those kids were to beat Salem, and they were very excited to get to the state championship, not just to beat Salem, but to get to the state championship. Their message, when I talked to some of them, Duran and Brian and Reagan, and is we got one more.
Yeah.
Now, they also had a Turkey Day game. That was not the one more they were talking about against Gateway. They were saying, we got one, we got to,
Right.
And that's an interesting mindset, having the first time through the state championship thing. What is the focus? To bring back the state championship, or, well, we're going to the state championship, here we are, we beat everybody local. Which I don't think anybody has that approach this year, but it was refreshing to hear that lock-in mentality right from 000 of that game. All right, now let's go win the state championship.
It is. It'll be interesting, and we'll talk globally about how, part of the sectional finals allure for all these years in South Jersey was foe playing foe, right?
Yeah.
Like, you got dudes playing dudes from years of
Sure.
and, guys who play each other during the regular season, guys who see each other every playoff year in that process. You have teams, I don't know, Kevin might be able to tell us, I don't think any of these have ever played each other.
Right.
So, getting over that for Woodbury, getting over that Salem hump, the emotional win. Now, what can you do then? Is that state final, that business trip where you're now about, you're going to try to conjure, you're going to have emotion, obviously, but the emotion's not going to be the animosity emotion. It's going to be, let's get it done.
Yeah.
I think for Woodbury, like you said, what is going to be the motivating factor for them? The fact that they beat Salem at, Cherokee was great. But those kids remember that bus ride back home from Rutgers.
That's another good point, Rob.
And I think that for them is, we got to make it back to Rutgers. This time we're coming home with a championship.
Right.
So they still have something in their holster that they can kind of pull out when they need it.
Right. And if I'm coach and you're sitting there and you're playing a Mountain Lakes team that, obviously you get to this point, they got dudes too. They're well coached, et cetera, et cetera. But now you're talking, everything from now on is history, but you're not only the first of the first, you're the first of the first. You're the opening game, 12 o'clock, noon. You are the first state champion in the state of New Jersey.
State history.
History ever.
Yes.
I mean, you're a trivia question in
Exactly.
2, 10, 20 years. Who's the first state champion ever? And if you would have said to me 10 years ago, who would this be in this spot? I'd be like, is it going to be Paulsboro?
Right?
Right? It's going to be Paulsboro?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
right? I mean, and now Woodbury can say, no, it's
Woodbury.
It's Woodbury. And that's the drive.
I like Kevin's suggestion here in the comments as well about Ibn Muhammad, who has really come on. The youngster is making play after play. He's got Brian Johnson's trust. It's very clear he looks for him in big-time situations. But again, I come back to my guy, Jabron Solomon, as Mr. Electric. Good things happen anytime he is near the ball, whether it's defensively, special teams, receiving. Good things happen for Woodbury. And I think if he touches it a number of times at Rutgers, good things are going to be happening for Woodbury again. Also, we got to give a shout-out to our guy, AD Dan Howie, for giving us the new, if you could just move your head a little bit back, the new and improved helmet stickers this year. Thanks so much, Dan, for sending them over. So we'll see. Woodbury Mountain Lakes at noon on Saturday.
What's the number there? Woodbury 10?
I think Woodbury is the favorite, but we watched the North Jersey football frenzy earlier today. Rod and I, and a couple of them are saying Mountain Lakes. So, we'll
Got to see this crew.
Did the host has
we've
got a big
some,
full head of hair to host?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. So we've got it does exist, and we've seen that. So I don't know. I think Woodbury, again, I think they are probably favored or picked by most, but take care of the ball. No penalties. Come on. Be serious here, guys. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. I like the herd. I like the herd, and you heard that here.
Take care of the ball, no penalties. That's usually the universal. Now you're sounding like a gray hair.
I always say I'm not a coach, but I could be a coach with sayings like that.
Yeah, you
Watch the ball.
don't go offside.
Don't watch the ball. All right, that's Group 1. We're looking forward to that. Now, Group 3 comes after that, and that is Saturday at 3 p.m. Old Tappan against Delsey. Before we get into Delsey, let's give you what we got on Old Tappan. Their only loss this year was to Ramapo, 30-22. Senior quarterback, Tommy Caracciolo. Hope I pronounced that right, Tommy. 1,900 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So they can throw, but you know what they can run it too? Running back Aiden Haney, 1,491 yards. Rushing, 24 more touchdowns. Evan Brooks, 833 yards receiving and 9 touchdowns. Jack Diggins, 114 tackles. Sorry. Dennis Delaney has 8 sacks. I don't think Dennis Delaney's going to have 8 sacks in this game. That's my bold prediction, or maybe even 1. I don't know how many times Delsey's going to throw the ball. But here we go. Delsey is back. They beat Camden in a classic at Cherokee. They earned it. They came back from down 14-0 at halftime to win that thing. Jimmy Reardon did pretty well in his big start there, his second start of the season. The young quarterback with Maxwell out with the injury.
Coaches make the adjustment at halftime. They run midline.
Yeah.
They run midline, which is, we're on the sideline watching it. It's probably one of the most difficult plays to run as a quarterback, as an option quarterback, is reading that inside D tackle. And then we all see USC do it against Notre Dame.
Yeah, how about that?
I mean, like,
Yeah.
you're reading that inside tackle, and I'll argue it's easier to do it from the gun because you see it easier. Like Reardon's doing it from under center. You get under center snap, and you're playing midline. It's a great play on the board, but having the trust, and I was in my world, I'm thinking, oh, that's a give. That's they're not even, and then. It looked like he's reading it because he pulled and he went, and that was the popper that got them rolling a little bit, that midline play. And not to get too geeky, when you don't have to block that D tackle, when you don't have to block a Camden High D tackle, you make him wrong, right? I mean, you leave him go if he crashes on the, because it's almost like your tackles are blocking like trap outside of your midline, because now they're going to the next level and getting into the laps of the linebacker level. Yeah. So you get that next level blocking is why those plays pop. So, but forget all that X and O on the board. Having a quarterback 2 times, second start of his career in a state final against Camden High, and decides Coach Marchese's like, you know what, I think we can get him some midline in the second half. That shows you. It kind of shows you what they're about as Delsey in practice, culturally, what they do. It's easy to say next man up. It's a whole other animal for the next man up to not really skip a beat.
Well, and Delsey has had some games this year. We've referred to them where they did not play their best, and you know what? They won because they're undefeated. And the Camden game, the first half, they didn't play their best. They looked nothing like themselves. No. Now, they're going to have to play their best in this one, though, because the Golden Knights of Old Tappan are mighty, mighty good. And not only are they balanced, as we mentioned, you look down their slate. Northern Highlands is playing in this nightcap we're going to talk about. They lost to them 28-0. Although that was in September, still, that's a pretty impressive score. Beating Hillside, we're familiar with them, 28-14 in the playoffs, and West Morris, 21-6. West Morris was mighty good this year, too. This game feels like it could be a really, really classic matchup. I think when you go through the 5 and you say to the non-biased observer, what do you think about these? And I think you'd come up with some pretty standard responses through these, right? Toms River North's a favorite. Caldwell's a favorite. We'll talk about Group 4 here in a second.
Woodbury's a favorite.
Woodbury, I think, is a slight favorite.
This
one is a game that...
This is a coin flip.
Yeah, well,
maybe some tap. Yeah, maybe it'll even lean towards Old Tappan. Maybe.
Yeah.
But, that's the way Delsey likes it, right? Old Tappan's like watching them on film. I can see what's happening. They're in the film room showing Old Tappan kids Delsey's offense, and they're kind of like, Coach,
yeah.
What's the deal here?
Well, last week they played, or 2 weeks ago, they played a wing T team, as Kevin says, and befitted themselves great, 21-6, and a really, really good one in the Wolfpack. But you never know with Delsey. They just seem to be, and I was thinking earlier when you said, these teams never have played each other. I think about how football is a program sport.
Right.
And these teams you've heard of, Highlands, Millville, Delsey, Woodbury, Old Tappan, Caldwell, right? Toms River North, Rumson.
They all know each other.
You've heard of them.
We know.
Even if you're, at the end of the year, if you're in North Jersey, you see their name on the top 20 list somewhere. And if you're in South Jersey, you've seen the other teams in the top 20 list as well. The thing is, in wrestling, I think about it in wrestling because it's also a program sport, right? Go down the list at the end of the year in wrestling. It's Phillipsburg, Paulsburg, Delsey, South Plainfield, Emerson Park Ridge, Kittatinny, on and on and on we go. It's mostly the same customers. I think after a certain amount of time here, some of these teams are going to be pretty familiar with what could be down the line, or they're going to be taking a look down. And that's the beauty of having state championships now, is that you think, well, okay, we know Delsey has a shot to be there at the end because, as we know, Delsey usually is somewhere near the end.
And saying that, I think right now the state has it right, meaning I like a true South representative playing a true North representative. Mm-hmm. Now, we could argue that, some might say that, for example, Group 1, some people say the South is loaded. Really, Salem and Woodbury are, the cream of the crop in the Group 1 and throughout the state. Now, I say that with some bias, but I think that one's. But I do like the fact that you go in there and you have the South. Our guys are, playing, going up and playing the North, and you're not seeding the whole state 1 to 32. Mm-hmm. We know we do it. They don't do it because of travel and this, that, and the other. But I'm okay. I'm okay knowing that we got our group.
Yeah. You
got your group, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any love lost between North and South Jersey really in anything.
Right.
It is one of those states that you truly feel that it's two different states. So it's great to see our guys go up. And then when you get to this situation, you talk about programs. Yes, programs in these situations win games. Players win games. The grit, as we talk about. But man, I still go back. You say wing T, and you sprinkle in midline.
Here's my question.
You just don't midline something. You sitting in there. Hey, let's do some midline, and that's hard to do.
Yeah.
And it's hard to defend. It's easy to draw. It's hard to defend.
Here's my ultimate question for this Group 3 state championship game. Where will Sal Marquez be during the game? He traditionally calls from up on top of the press box. Press box is much higher
He might
at
like-
Rutgers. He may go all the way up there. I don't think he'll be on the sideline.
He might like it even better.
Even better.
He'll be like, he'd rather be in a helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he's the general of generals. He wants to see. He's talking about all 22. He sees everything going on. I liked being on the field. I think most guys say they want to be on the field.
Most are.
Most are. But offensively, if you could like coach a game twice, being up top, seeing what the defensive tackles are doing for Camden High, and then knowing, you know, just like the past guys. There's a reason why the offensive coordinators in colleges all sit up there in their spit cups and the pencils and they're looking at their the play charts, because they see the safety, they see they see the coverage,
Right.
the back end, what they're giving them, you know, the pressures and what's married up on coverages. So I think Sal likes that spot.
So that is the Group 3 state championship. Old Tappan or Tappan, or, you know, that's another thing we learn each time through this. The first time through, we'll learn how to pronounce some of this stuff.
New Jersey has some of the weirdest names
Right?
does.
of any state.
Right?
Delsey, 3 p.m. on Saturday.
Saying it's a pick 'em.
All right. He's saying it's a pick 'em. Hear that, Bear? Group 4.
Bear.
The nightcap on Saturday, 6 p.m. Both of these teams played at Rutgers at the beginning of the season. I got to see both of them play there. One of them won in Northern Highlands. They beat Winslow. They came from behind and won at the end. Millville lost to Irvington on that Friday night. It was one of Millville's 2 losses on the year, the other coming to Lenape. Here we go, Mac. This very well could have been the state championship last year had there been one, except Northern Highlands fell to Irvington, who Millville lost to earlier this year, and Millville beat Winslow, so Millville would have played Irvington. The losses for Northern Highlands this year, we said Old Tappan, Ridgewood, and Clifton, all good teams. Sophomore quarterback Nate Johnson, 1,300 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, 7 picks. J.R. Wally also threw for 864, 11 touchdowns, 4 picks. I'm not sure who's starting in this game. 800 yards receiving, though, for Zach Madison. And Zach Chastaka, I like that name, a senior linebacker, leads the defense with 163 tackles. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Jack and Sarah, 16.5 sacks. They do run a 2-quarterback system. They'll switch it in and out. Millville, we know what they have. And one thing they have is this unstoppable way of surviving games the last couple of times out. Now, not necessarily the Vineland game on Turkey Day, but the 2 playoff games before that. They played Hamilton. They were losing by 10 going in the 4th quarter. They won. They scored 12 in the 4th and 1 in the rain.
Converted some 4th and 5s, did some things, yes, and won in the rain.
Then they come down and go to Cherokee, and they're playing Mainland, and again they go to the 4th quarter trailing. And again they scored 12 points in the 4th quarter and win. They have been the cardiac comeback OBG squad that just is the zombie with his arm out of the ground. You got to play a full 4 quarters to beat Millville. The question is, Northern Highlands going to be able to do it?
No.
You say no. All right. Max says no. That's it. I hope you heard that, Bear. Max says absolutely not. Now,
And not because of the comeback cardiac stuff.
yeah.
Look, Mainland. You have to kill it, right? In that spot, you got to kill you got to finish the job. And you know, we talked about it off camera. You can't give a dangerous team like that another shot. And like during, you know, they did it. They did it in 100 seconds against Hamilton. They got the ball back 3.5. What was it? 3.5 minutes left. Millville had, I mean, so plenty of time. You know, conversion. It's like they went to a different gear. Just seeing them live too. I mean, I saw them live week 1. I saw them down at the Battle of the Beach, but now seeing them live, you know, in those situations. I mean, battle tested, but they got dudes all over the place.
Here's what impresses me about Millville. I don't know that I've seen a team, maybe a couple times over my tenure. I think back to Devin Leary at Hamilton.
Hamilton, yeah.
I think back to, maybe you talk about that drive. I know it's painful for you, Rod, but the Delsey drive at Timber Creek that ended with Bourgette's touchdown catch.
He's going to the NFL, though, so I'm okay.
I think I look at those games. They're isolated through time where I can think back and say, a high school team drove down and won a playoff game.
Right.
I mean, that is pretty impressive to go down and do it. And they did it twice in a row.
Right.
And I was at both of them. And I really can't even fathom that, how clutch they are. I mean, when they are a different team in the last 5 minutes. Now, Coach Ayala will tell you, and everybody else, they don't want to be in that position where that's the case. And it also says, well, up to that point, what if they play like that the whole game? But
so that's what I was going to say. OBG can't come out in the state championship and play that way because the team that they're playing, they're used to playing at this time of the year as well.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a different type of game when you have people that have been in. You may be better than that team. I'm not saying you're not, but the experience of being there may take over and you may not be able to overcome that. The thing that kind of scares me a little bit with Millville is I kind of feel like they've been playing down to the competition, and then when they needed it, they've revved it up.
Right.
That scares me going into the state championship game.
Part of that, they're young.
Right.
I mean, they're young. And now, say you talented, yes.
Oh, yeah.
But
for sure.
But young. I thought, on paper, I test everything pregame. You look at Millville versus Mainland, you're like, all right, I'm going with these guys.
Exactly.
I'm not saying it's going to be a runaway, but the guys in orange and blue look like they could do some damage. And to your point, Rod, they do when it's like, okay, guys, gym class is over in 22. Gym class is over in a minute. Let's go. We got to score some goals.
Right.
Whatever sport we're in. Let's about to blow the whistle.
Right.
All right. Let's go. Let's get this thing done. And that's going to be the challenge over the last. I'm sure has been the challenge of saying, guys. And then if you're Millville, you're a kid. You're like, well, we got this, right? We got this, right? We've been here. We've seen this.
I think it's a matter of. Well, there's a couple things at play that our commenters are bringing up, and I think it's valid. The first is that Northern Highlands knocked Irvington out of the playoffs. Irvington beat Millville. Irvington has 3 guys that are going D1 in the back end. They've
Legit.
Not only played with Major League athletic teams, they've beaten them.
They've seen it before.
Now, I think another thing that's a good point too is that Hamilton and Millville were pretty darn good. And I think Mainland were pretty darn good. And Millville's defense, we talked about that Hamilton game, 2 big runs, right? The Mainland game, they got it inside the 10, and they weren't scoring. And their star back ran for 30 yards on 13 touches. 2 a carry. So the front line of that defense, and you look at our guy Cornish, who chased down Mace on the kickoff return, Offer and Blakowitz up front. Sorry for the pronunciation. That's something that gets lost in the mix because when you look at Millville, everybody talks about, and rightfully so,
right?
Zamat,
Brooks,
Hale, Brooks, Smith, these guys that Levon. Anytime they catch the ball, they spread you out. If they catch it, they can go and make a highlight, and it's on Huddle, it's on Instagram. But Sharp running the ball, 1,000-yard rusher. And don't forget Brashear Hunter, who had the 44-yard scoop and score against Mainland and ran for a touchdown. I think he ran for 2 touchdowns, actually. He's back in the mix now and looks fully healthy. So I think the front 7 of Millville and the run game of Millville are strengths, but they're not what sell Yeah, in the old days, you say they're not what sell newspapers, right? Nobody signs up to say, look at these guys. You want to see these guys on the outside. But they can do it, and they can play any which way, which is why I like them.
I mean, it's funny. I remember Coach Zwan, Billy Zwan, and some guys. He coached Widener, he coached Westchester. Zwan was a wing T guy at heart, but you're coaching Division II. He used to joke at clinics and say, I do my spread stuff in the first half so I can run my wing T in the second.
Right.
Right. So Millville, when they need to run the ball, they can run the ball. Sharp, and their front can get the ball going, get it moving. And we all know, like you said, we all know what the talent is on the outsides and what they can do with Brooks and et cetera. It's the gashing. We talked about that. How much does Northern Highlands have to get in the box to stop the run?
Well, and when you look at how stout they've been at the linebacker position, defensive end position, they do a good job at their front seven as well, Northern Highlands, and they're very well coached. Millville, I can assure you this: Millville is going there knowing that if they don't win this game, all the other money is off the table. I mean, they from the beginning, this has been the goal.
Yes.
And for a long time, the goal was to get back and play Irvington. Well, the team that beat Irvington is now here in their place for this state championship. And you never really know how a team's mindset's going to be, but I will say this. Millville expects to win that game, and, I think they have a pretty darn good shot at doing it.
I agree. I think they have a really good shot. They have to buckle down. They have to start fast and just stay focused. They're playing a really good team. I don't know if it's that much of a Millville Rolls.
No. I mean, look, because if they come out to
be tough. They got to fight for it.
You can't look. All due respect, Northern Highlands is not. They're not Hamilton.
Right.
They're not Mainland. Right. I mean, just. And rightfully so. I mean, this is state final, right? This is the best of the North, and this is what you got. And this is the best of the South. That's what you got. So
as Bear said too, they've won 4 tight ones in a row too.
Yeah, they've
Millville has done the same.
That's what I'm saying. They're used to playing this type. Both teams are used to playing this type of way. I mean, for me, I'm just looking. I'm trying to. What I try to do is look on the opposite side and look at the team as if they were one of ours, right? So what I'm looking at is, hey, we played a team like Millville before. We just knocked them off in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They've.
Well, that's
that's how I would be looking at it. So that's why I just say, I would be nervous if it was in the fourth quarter, 2 minutes, 3 minutes left, and Millville's down 6 points. That's not a place that.
No, it's not.
I don't want them to be in that position.
And I talked about how impressed I was with them being able to deliver in crunch time.
Right.
But that leaves out the fact of their defense shutting teams down so that the offense can deliver in crunch time.
Right.
I mean, they scored 12 points in the fourth quarter against Mainland. They also had a turnover on downs on their own side of the field, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they got the ball back. And then they went down and scored. They also were inside the 10 and stopped them. Their defense, Hamilton needed 1 first down to put the game away. Didn't get it. So their defense has been able to hold the fort. Somebody asked me the other night if I forget which game. Oh, well, what do you think about this game? I said, well, we'll see. Well, what about the team they're playing? They any good? It's a state championship.
Yeah, right?
It's a state championship. I mean, there is nobody playing that isn't the best of the best.
Right.
They've fought here. They've gotten here.
Right.
And they're very good. And to the point also about Northern Highlands, they have overcome a lot. They've beaten some really, really good teams. Like you said, they've played a team like Millville. And you know what Millville says? No, you haven't, because we know who we are, and we're going to be able to do that. So I do think it's going to be. I think it's going to be an excellent game. I do know if Millville wins, you'll be able to hear the chants of OBG from the Raritan all the way down to the tippy point of Lower Cape May and all the way back up north.
What's that, exit 9?
As well. I don't
Rutgers.
even know what exit is.
Oh, yeah.
Exit 9? They'll be, chanting that all the way down.
Yeah, New Brunswick all the way down. Well, I mean,
All the way down 55.
Look, that 3 o'clock game. That 3 o'clock game, that Delsey game, and the 6 o'clock game. Those two are just. I mean, and then Woodbury with the first ever.
Yeah,
it's a great Saturday for South Jersey football, no doubt.
we had a question in the comments from Hector, and I'm going to answer it now once and for all. This is it.
What was the question?
The question was, will a North Jersey or Shore Conference player get the hat this weekend? And the answer is, I do not expect to be there Sunday. So the Shore Conference is not going to get the hat because I don't think I'm going back up there. However, on Saturday, whoever wins these games is getting the hat. If it's Mountain Lakes, Old Tappan, Northern Highlands, they got it. So it's up to Woodbury, Delsey, and Millville to see if it lasts another year in South Jersey or if it goes to the other state. And that is nothing. I'm not against giving it out. We talked about this. I want to do it for state finals, but the way the schedule shook out and other needs, there's a lot going on this time of year. I just don't think I'm going to make it back up there on Sunday.
And part of that is the expansion of the playoffs. I mean, we're not getting around seeing these teams and figuring out who they are now. So at this point, state championships, let's go.
Yeah, if you win the final game, it's deserved.
Yeah, I would say so. Mac, do you have a soapbox this week?
Not really.
Not really. I don't think
No,
so.
I'm good. I'm good.
Rod's got a soapbox.
I don't know if I want to go in. My soapbox.
Hold on. Here's my.
I got one, but
Go ahead, Rod.
No.
Go ahead.
I'm good.
No,
Okay, all right.
No soapboxes.
My soapbox is, even though this is pretty well overdue, I do want to salute the NJSIA for giving us the state championship. The right thing to do is the right thing to do. And you got to give kudos when it's done. Not that it shouldn't have been done sooner, but it's done now. And so now we all look forward to this greatness that's going to be the epic weekend ahead of us at Rutgers every year. Go ahead, Rod.
So my soapbox was going to be to all the people who are trying to kill the Thanksgiving Day game.
Kill it in which way? Saying they shouldn't play it, or saying
just get rid of it,
or kill it in general? Yeah.
Just to get rid of it. And basically, what you just said is they're doing it the exact way that I felt they should do it. You can still be able to keep those traditions intact if you want to.
If you want.
Now we got to break it down. It's only 5 teams from South Jersey that possibly could make it every year. And we want to kill a 100-year tradition for 5 teams.
5 teams.
It doesn't.
Well,
that's my soapbox. That part of it.
That's kind of what I've always felt that way from the beginning when we've had these conversations. And people said, well, how could you fit in the schedule with the Turkey Day games and talking about the state championships? It's like, well, if you want to play Turkey Day bad enough and you're in the state championship, go ahead. Or don't. I mean, or say, you know what, guys? We're taking a rain check. Why don't you call this team that doesn't have one and play them? Which ends up sometimes happening anyway after the season for consolation games. I mean, it does affect 5 teams. But I also know this. If you're knocked out of the playoffs or your consolation games are gone for 2 or 3 weeks, getting kids to come to practice
it's how you
or
fill,
to even
right.
care
It's how you fill
is minimal.
It's how you fill that.
That's the thing.
It's how you fill that space between end of season. If you're going to fill a consolation game or 2, then, but it is hard. Look, Camden High, good, bad, or different, played 6 days prior. Right.
Well, the timeline. I'm looking at the timeline of how many kids really, you don't realize it when you're in the moment that you're done. There were teams done in October.
Yeah.
Just done.
They were.
Yeah. Oh, yep. It is odd this year. It was definitely, at our house, we're looking around like my freshman doesn't notice because it's his first high school experience, so he doesn't know that like as a freshman brain, he's like, all right, yeah, it's done now. This is long. I'm used to youth football. Even though youth football goes to Thanksgiving, they're practicing they're not practicing 6 days a week, 3.5 hours, films, lifting, et cetera, et cetera. And they do a great job, but it's a whole different animal as you go up as we know.
Right.
And so for that, but like to your point, the senior who, man, it's done.
It's over.
It's done.
It's October, 20th?
Right.
And I haven't,
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like they need closure.
Right.
Like a relationship with football. They're like, Thanksgiving used to be that. It used to be that final thing. I mean, I was fortunate for me, Thanksgiving, like you, Rod, the Camden Wilson was a thing, right?
Yeah.
I grew up playing for Eustis, playing my dad's team.
Right.
That's a thing, right? When you got to eat dinner with a guy, right? And you know he's got the dudes, the best dudes.
Right.
And you just want to, and he comes home, he's reading the paper at 5:30 at night, and you're practicing 17 hours at the wing tee trying to beat the dudes. That's a thing, and that was a long. And then as a coach, I was there, right, Eustis, and then then the Lenape Shawnee. So I've been a part of some like heated events or heated games, like the Camden. But some folks.
Yes, I'm not saying this for everybody.
Yeah. Some are like,
everybody keep it, but those traditions are really good, and
ways
that you can keep those things around. I mean, I'm just looking at teams getting knocked off week after week after week, and then I'm thinking about it like we're really killing a long-standing tradition for 5 teams.
Yeah.
When it's all said and done, it possibly could be 5 teams, and with us this year it's only 3.
Right. I mean, and then they argue the start of the season, August,
right?
Well,
let it rock and roll. That was just my soapbox.
I mean, it has a valid point. I think a lot of it this year is growing pains off of
Figuring
what
it out.
to expect and what the timelines are, because we've never done this before.
Yeah.
And I just know from experience that even not this year, I'm not speaking about what happened on Federal Street on last Thursday, but I've been to some Turkey Day games in the past where neither team wants to be there. There's penalties everywhere.
You're right.
The kids are out of control. There's no consequences if you're ejected because the season's over. There's fans have had a few too many along the fence line, and they're sometimes out of control. And that's not the norm, but there is a downside to having the games.
Right,
I mean,
there is.
this is not a perfect situation, but from a tradition standpoint, absolutely. The tradition,
I mean,
if you're a traditionalist, which this gray hair is, I know, you want that game to be where it's supposed to be at that time. Every year, you know where you're going to be Turkey Day morning.
Yeah,
we want it because of where we experienced it, right? I told you my background in it. Rod Camden High. I mean, we've been fortunate to be around some cool traditions.
The other side of it is from a fan's perspective or someone who lives in California and you're coming home for Thanksgiving, like, that's the family reunion. You get to see your classmates. Right. You get to see, old teachers and just people that you haven't seen in 15 years.
Right.
When they play that game in September,
they're not
like nobody cares. I'm not coming back home for that. I'm coming home Thanksgiving to see my family. And while I see my family, I'll see my friends and old teammates. It's just a family gathering. I know the games sometimes listen, Camden High lost by 72 points at one point. In one of those games, but it's what happens outside of that and what it means and kind of just the feel that it gives you.
Right, and that's the trade-off, I guess, for the, because, Camden High is in a different frame because they lost their, whatever the different,
it's the Turk, man. It's the turkey game.
Yeah,
Coach Mack.
I know. Look, I've been on both sides of the emotions. I've had teams that just lost a state final game, and because the parochials sometimes played early and trying to get ready for that Penn Saucon game, and then it's it's a tough spot to be in, especially depending on how when that when the drop is, how much space in between. So it's but look, those St. Joe Hamilton games, man, they're legendary. Just like some of the Camden Wilson games, and so we're evolving according to Trib, right?
Well, I don't want to put his business out there, but last night I talked to Woodstown coach John Adams, and Coach Adams and Salem, they decided to have their game in the regular season this year because they knew part of the reason was they knew they were missing out on valuable PowerPoints, the strength of the programs, if they played it at Turkey Day. And John's team lost in the sectional semis, so they had the time off. The season ended way too early compared to how it usually does for Woodstown. And when I asked him, I thought he was going to say what you said, Rod, and he said, man, I was so glad to just enjoy the morning with my family. And I was expecting a lot of emails and stuff that day. We got none. It's different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, it is.
No doubt about it. But, year to year, we'll see.
That's a long time waiting for football to come on, though. Man, I'm used to like I'm a routine guy. I like waking up, Thanksgiving,
Well, your routine has to change. That's the thing.
No.
You got to change your routine.
We can't do that. That can't happen.
Right.
You got to listen, I'm in order.
Rod wants a football game on Thursday, and hoops starts on Friday.
Yes.
Which it doesn't anymore.
It's a route. Listen, you wake up, get your breakfast. This year I had the bacon with the grits, the eggs. We had pancake. Oh, man, it was
The eating
spread.
before the eating.
Before the eating.
Yeah, you got to get ready.
Because, I'm out of the house early because I'm doing a broadcast. You get to the game, you enjoy the people, you see your friends, your family. Hey, what's going on? How you doing?
I get
and by
it.
the time as many penalties that was in the Camden, the East Side game, it pushed it back a little bit. So by the time I got home, I was able to sit down at the table and eat. It was perfect.
I was ready to take a nap.
Perfect.
Both before dinner, standing out there watching the penalties, and after dinner. I was ready for naps on both ends.
My wife doesn't want me around, so I don't know. Like, she's like, why are you here?
Right. See, she feels it too.
I'm like, well, mom's coming, your mom's coming, She's like, that feels weird. She's like,
it's gravy time, Trace.
Right. Well, the gravy's not really done. The gravy's done with the drippings when the bird's done. The bird was done with the convection style this way. It was done at 132. So
listen. This is all. This is Rod's soapbox is a manifestation of some. He's a little bit upset, not just about Assumption falling. I know, tight one. Yeah. Camden alumni, tight one, but he's on both sides now. But he's really sore about Saturday, what happened.
Yeah, no doubt.
We won't go into that, but this is where it's coming from a place of disruption for Rob.
Yeah,
I know it is, and Dwayne's in here. He's probably pretty happy about what happened.
Yeah. But Ryan Day has to go. Him and that defensive coordinator. Listen, the Big Ten team that's a powerhouse turned into a Pac-12 team. We pass the ball and we don't play defense. What is going on in Ohio State?
What happened?
Run the ball.
What happened?
We're talking about Zeke, Eddie George. We talking about running the ball, physical brand of offense. I'm just sick of it.
Say what you want, like him or not, right? Urban, he was a high school, he was running traps and cap schemes with the Dazio, and they bang, like you look at what he did inside at Utah, at Florida, then Ohio State.
We're soft.
You said it.
Soft. I haven't.
Because we used to, when I was at Lenape, they were some of the old films we would grab and say, hey, we like this, we think we can do this, we think we can run quarterback run this way. We've stole. Right. Now,
and have you ever seen a quarterback in college that won't run? I mean, I'm watching Williams from USC. He's out there looking like Reggie Bush running the ball and throwing it. And then I'm watching Ohio State quarterback. He don't run across the line of scrimmage. Like I've said it the last 2 to 3 years, I've told my close friends and family, that team stinks. They're not built to win the national championship. Everybody was complaining about Ohio State's quarterback.
This is the soapbox.
Like, come on.
I knew I was lighting him.
He's like a therapist.
I knew I was lighting a match and throwing it over there.
He's like a therapist right now.
Turkey did not sit well with Rod because of what happened on Saturday.
let's
It
go.
doesn't have anything to do with you guys who don't want to play your turkey day game.
Nothing to do with high school football right now. Rod is not happy because Ohio State is soft.
Man, soft.
I saw
with a
this-
team soft.
I saw the score at halftime, and I thought,
Right.
oh, well, Ohio State, they're playing at home. Then I saw the final score. I'm like, what?
I texted my boy. I texted our boy Lou Rubio, and his mom. He's recently passed, but she was Ohio State through and through, and I got very little. Like I wasn't ribbing. I was like, yo, what up? He's like, not good.
Yeah.
Like to your point, Rod, he knew. When Harbaugh knew on the side, what was the quote from the was it Edwards, the receiver who became the number 7? He goes, they are who we thought they were.
Listen, when they hired a defensive coordinator from Oregon State, I knew what it was. Like, dude, Oregon State defensive coordinator. They ain't stopped nobody yet.
Well,
they still scoring.
That's fine out there in the touch league. But you want to get.
All right, I'm done. This is my last thing. I would rather go back to the days of Ohio State quarterbacks being bust instead of us putting so much into trying to make our quarterback the Heisman Trophy winner. We got to get back to the day. Like,
Yo, look at the cat. Look at the cat at Georgia.
Oh man,
He looks like he's 12.
yeah.
All I know is there was one guy in white, blue, and maize that was running all over the field.
Yeah.
And
But I mean, ultimately,
And that's not
The
their
guy- the guy was-
that's their other guy.
the guy was putting on the odometer. There was no one within 40 yards of him.
yeah, and both teams were without their star running backs. I get it, but one team when they needed it in the fourth quarter, that game it was a close game up into the fourth quarter. They got two late runs with Ohio State running sellout blitz, just trying to stop the run. So I get it, but at the end of the day, man, overall they're just soft. Period.
That's from Ohio State guy.
I can't disagree with him. We will be back next Wednesday to wrap up the season. The Hats Off podcast is going to be Monday night from Tom Padgett's Senior Showcase. Any seniors out there that are unsigned, be sure to sign up for that at jerseygridironscout.com. That's where we'll be. So no Hats Off podcast Sunday morning. Enjoy the weekend of games. Good luck to everybody out there playing. I know it's only 10 of you, 3 from South Jersey, but see what happens, man. I'm excited for it. We'll cover it all.
It's a good time. Let's see. Let's go. Let's bring it home.
Let's
And another thing, no, I'm not
and another. Best of luck to everybody. Enjoy the state championships. We've waited long enough. The time is here. Don't bring up Ohio.